Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1181, 1181, Saturday, July the 4th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in and happy Independence Day. So before I get on to the news of the last 24 hours, let me go ahead and let you know that there will not be a video on Sunday. That's because on Saturday, which normally Sunday video I'll be doing on Saturday evening, I'm going to be hanging out with some friends, eating some burgers, and having a few pops. Now, I imagine most of you will be doing the same, celebrating our independence. And I would like to offer one word of advice to you. There'll be a lot of fireworks going on, there'll be a lot of drinking going on, and there's three things. There's one thing you want to avoid, and that is individuals that check three boxes. Three boxes. Keep your distance from people who are drunk, stupid, and have fireworks. Drunk, stupid, and have fireworks. Deadly combination. Keep your distance. There's my words of advice for you. So, like I say, there will not be a video on Sunday, but I'll be back on Monday with another TowerGate video. Very unlikely that any major Spygate news is going to break on Independence Day. Pretty much don't think that will happen. So, anyway, you all enjoy your celebrations. Be safe. Have a good time. And we'll get back at it on Monday. Now, let's go ahead and look at the news of the past 24 hours. Well, yesterday, Chuck Grassley gave a speech on the Senate floor where he talked about cutting funding to the Office of Net Assessment. That, due to the lack of cooperation from the Office of Net Assessment in his inquiry, and it's specifically as it relates to Stefan Halper, and questions that Grassley has had for the Office of Net Assessment about Stefan Halper that they are not being very cooperative about. So he's going to cut $10 million of their funding. One of the big questions that he has for them, which is a question we'd all like to know, is what do they know about Stefan Halper's work with the FBI? The Federal Bureau of I'm With Her. They don't want to answer very many of those questions, but my guess is that Mr. Durham is going to get to the bottom of all that. They don't really have much choice. When it comes to Mr. Durham, they pretty much have to answer his questions. Chuck Grassley, not so much. But hang in there, Chuck. Give it that good old Army try. Maybe you'll turn up something. Now, we know that Stefan Halper, the fat man, was secretly recording Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and Sam Clovis. Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and Clovis. Sam Clovis. Who was he working for when he was doing those recordings? Who was paying him? The taxpayers? Or the taxpayers paying money that goes into the Pentagon budget that then funds the Office of Net Assessment that was then paying Stefan Halper to conduct surveillance activities on 3 members of Trump's campaign team? If so, that's a problem, don't you think? We also know that Stefan Halper, the fat man, mentioned Vyacheslav Trubnikov. He mentioned him to Papadopoulos in London. We also know that after meeting with after meeting with Christopher Steele at the State Department, Kathleen Kvalik wrote down on her notes about her conversation that she had with Christopher Steele that he mentioned the name of Trubnikov as a source. And we know that Halper invited Trubnikov over to Cambridge 2 times in 2016, and that he told Papadopoulos that they have a close friendship. Remember, Trubnikov was the head of the SVR. That is what replaced the KGB. So what do we have going on here? We have Stefan Halper, the fat man, working out of this Office of Net Assessment, which is a office department within the Pentagon. He's being paid taxpayer dollars. He's spying on the Trump campaign, conducting surveillance, recording conversations with Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and Sam Clovis. He's telling Papadopoulos that he's got a good relationship with Trubnikov, former head of the SVR. We know that he invited Trubnikov to Cambridge 2 times in 2016 to give lectures. And then we have Kathleen Kvalik, after meeting with Christopher Steele, writing down in her notes that Steele mentioned Trubnikov as a source. So if Trubnikov is a friend and associate of Halper, and he's conducting intelligence work on the Trump campaign, talking to Trubnikov, and then Steele is telling Kvalik that one of his sources is Trubnikov, it's not quite a very big stretch to suggest that maybe Halper was relating information to Christopher Steele from Trubnikov. Because remember what Christopher Steele has told us in 2 different depositions, that he never met with or spoke with or dealt with any of the informants himself. Never spoke with any of these people himself. He was relying on a middleman whose name has still not been released. Is it possible that Stefan Halper was Christopher Steele's primary subsource, and that Halper was getting this information from Trubnikov and giving it to Christopher Steele? Was Stefan Halper Christopher Steele's primary subsource? If that turns out to be the case, that's bad news. Very bad news. Think about it. Steele's primary subsource. Now, I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but it's starting to look like it. And this is not the first time that we've talked about this. I first came up with this theory about a year ago, where I thought, it's nearly impossible to imagine that Halper and Steele do not know each other. They hang out with the same guys in the same places in London. They're both working on taking down Trump by infiltrating people in his campaign. And there's probably a middleman involved here. And that middleman would likely be one of these private contractors. Either Confusion GPS or maybe Hackloot. Because they're all connected. If Halper turns out to be one of Steele's sources or his primary source, that is really bad. Really, really bad. That means you would have the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment, the government, being paid tax dollars, using those tax dollars to pay an informant to talk to the former head of the Russian SVR, which was formerly the KGB, to get information to give to Steele so that he could feed the information through a dossier back to Confusion GPS, so they could feed it back to the Clinton campaign, into the State Department through pipelines through Jonathan Weiner and others, and also into the FBI, because the FBI was also paying Christopher Steele. Do you see how bad that looks? Think about it. Just let that roll around in your mind for a little while. There's a reason why after the Horowitz report came out and how everything else that's come out, there's a reason why they are not telling us who the primary subsource is. Now, up to this point, a lot of people believe it's Sergei Milian. But Sergei Milian does not check all the boxes. Halper does. God help these people if we find out that Stefan Halper was Steele's primary subsource. You talk about this thing blowing up. Whew. And you talk about heads rolling. And this drags a lot of people into it. And this smokes anyone who had any knowledge of this. Any knowledge whatsoever. Now, that would explain everything that's going on right now. That would surely explain it. Because that would be... I don't know what the word would be, but it's way worse than bad. It's way worse than terrible. It's way worse than catastrophic. It's way worse than epic. It's way worse than biblical. It's worse than any word I can think of. There is no word to describe how bad it will be if we find out that Stefan Halper was feeding Steele. Information he was getting from Trubnikov, the former head of the SVR. Who was colluding with Russians? Well, that would mean the FBI, the Clinton campaign, the Pentagon, Confusion GPS, Hillary's law firm, the British government. Not good. Not good. I'll tell you what. We're going to find out in the not too distant future. There's a reason why after all this time, all these other names, all these other people were named in the Horowitz reports. Remember, there's been 5 Horowitz reports. But I'm talking about the main one. The one that we got this past November. And of all the names, of all the players that have been dropped, one name has not yet been made available. Christopher Steele's primary subsource. Many people believe it to be Milian. But look at the description of Steele's primary subsource. Milian does not check all the boxes. Stefan Halper does. Is that what we're going to find out? Now, if that turns out to be true, that would explain everything. That would explain why they had to cover this whole thing up and go to the lengths they went to and take the risks they took. It would explain everything that's going on right now. Because that would be so freaking bad that it would be beyond anything imaginable. And the amount of heads that would roll. And you talk about a black conspiracy, a dark conspiracy. It's already bad. It's already really bad. But if we find out that the primary subsource... Because remember, Halper is working for the FBI. That means the FBI's informant was feeding Steele. Russian disinformation. Right from Trubnikov. Right to Steele. And into the dossier. And all these people would have known about it. They all would have known about that. Whew. Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying that is, that Halper is the primary subsource. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that right now we don't know. That for some reason, of all the names that we've learned about, that one has remained blacked out. And there aren't too many other candidates that we can think of that will check all the boxes. One guy does, and it's Halper. Milian does not. It fits. It fits perfectly. Well, in the last 24 hours, a lot more information has come out about Ghislaine Maxwell. As is always the case, the first reports you get turn out to be false, or there are mistakes, always in the initial reporting of everything. So now we have the Daily Telegraph, which is generally considered to be kind of a mainstream paper in England, London, Great Britain, whatever you want to call it. And they have a story out today which I assume was quoting this individual, Stephen Hofberg. Now, Mr. Hofberg did jail time for running a Ponzi scheme along with Jeffrey Epstein. But now Epstein wiggled off the hook. Hoffman didn't. Hoffman went to jail. Hoffman knows Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell very well. And he was interviewed by the Daily Telegraph. And he echoes very much what I said yesterday. He said that Maxwell knows everything and that she will fully cooperate. He says if they put her in prison, she will crack in 2 seconds. He said if they put her in solitary, she will snap. He also says that he has spoken to people who represent her, and they told him that Maxwell did not think that she would be arrested. We also learn that she was not in France. She was not in Brazil. She was not in London. None of the places we were told she was. According to Mr. Hofberg, her representative that he spoke to said no, she's been in the U.S. since at least December of this past year. And that those stories that were coming out that she was in France and that she was in Brazil and all these other places were just fake news put out by her people to throw investigators off her trail. But apparently the FBI had been tracking her and knew roughly where she was. And apparently since at least December of this past year, she has been around various places in the New England area. The New England area, which is where you find a lot of the heavy-hitting, so-called elitist, globalist, liberals, globalist, New World Order types. MIT is there. I believe Harvard is there. Lots of your wealthy elitists live in the New England area. And obviously, some of these people were providing her with cover. They were putting her up. How long she's been at this residence, I don't know. But the FBI must have been watching her. Now, she may have just was feeling safe and decided to come there. But apparently she's been staying at various places over the past 6 months or so in the New England area. So some people have been providing her a place to stay. But they pick her up at this place that she purchased through an LLC. We also have another very damaging witness who's come out. They're calling her Jane Doe. Jane Doe claims that Maxwell herself raped her 20 to 30 times, and that she is just as evil as Epstein, and that the rapes began when she was 14 and continued until she was 16. She became pregnant through her sexual exploitation with Epstein and his friends in what she describes as gang rapes, with Maxwell taking part. She either loses or aborts the baby. At one point, she says that Maxwell dropped her off on her grandparents' front lawn naked and told her that if she ever talked, something bad would happen to her family. She is willing to testify against Maxwell. Maxwell is likely to be housed in the same prison where Epstein met his demise. And as I said yesterday, this is a woman who's lived a life of incredible wealth and total freedom. Travels around the world. I mean, there's no way that she's going to be, in fact, it's already been decided, she is not getting out of jail. She's in the custody right now of U.S. Marshals. She will be taken by van, obviously, from where she's at in New Hampshire down to, I guess, New York or wherever they're going to try her case. She is definitely not going to get out on bail. she's definitely what you might call a flight risk. Because if she ever gets free, she's got 3 visas, millions of dollars, properties around the world, lots and lots of powerful friends who will hide her. You'll never hear from her again. She will go underground. Maybe she'll join Epstein. How many of you believe Epstein's dead? How many of you believe Epstein killed himself? How many of you believe that Epstein is alive and is underground, living somewhere under a different name? Incognito. Now there's something else that comes into play. Attorney General Barr, in the past, 6 to 8 weeks, has gotten rid of Noel Francisco, Dana Buente, Jody Hunt, and Jeff Berman. And what do they all have in common? They have quite a few things in common. But one thing they definitely all have in common is that all their last days was July 3rd, today. Is it possible that Attorney General Barr got rid of Berman because he would not follow through and arrest Maxwell? Was Berman not doing his job and arresting Maxwell? Would Jody Hunt, Dana Buente, and Noel Francisco be helping to cover? I don't know the answer to these questions, but let's just say I don't believe in coinkydink. I do not believe in coincidences in Washington, D.C. Things do not just happen in Washington, D.C. Everything that happens in Washington, D.C. is made to happen. And in this case, Attorney General Barr made these firings happen, or resignations. Berman, Hunt, Puente, and Francisco. All their final days yesterday, or today I should say, July 3rd. The day after Maxwell is arrested. Why wasn't she arrested earlier? Apparently the FBI is telling us that they knew that she was in the States. They've been following her, tracking her. Why did they wait so long to pick her up? They didn't pick her up until the day before. All these guys are cleaning out their desks. Or probably the day that they're cleaning out the desks. Because they had to be gone today. Their last day on the job is the day that the arrest happens. This woman cannot do time in prison, I'm telling you right now. You know, her life up until now, her whole life up until now, she's never dealt with anything remotely like being in a restricted space. She's used to having unlimited freedom of movement, unlimited money, pretty much, access, and everything else. And for her to get out of the crime she's being accused of in a plea deal to avoid jail time, facing these types of felonies, these are not the types of felonies that you can normally cut a plea deal and do anything. I mean, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Even in a plea deal, you might be able to knock a few years off that, maybe half, but you're definitely going to serve at least 10. She can't do one day. She is going to have to give up the family jewels. And she's probably still going to do a little time. She'll be willing to give up whatever she has to give up so that she doesn't do a day in jail. And I don't know how that's possible when you're facing the type of egregious crimes that she is facing. These are very, very nasty, hardcore sex crimes, the types of crimes people go to jail for a long time for. And she's involved in so much of that and a lot more. for her to get off with no jail time, she would have to give up everything. Like I said, the family jewels. She'd have to give up everything. And she likely will. Because this woman can't do time. I don't think she can do a day. And we have one story today coming out already saying that she is going to cooperate. There's a lot of very nervous people right now. I can assure you of that. We're not just talking about a handful of people here. We are talking about dozens and dozens of people whose names you'll know. The wealthiest people in the world. The most powerful people in the world. Connected to governments. Some of them named Clinton. Some of them named Weinstein. Some of them named Kevin Spacey. He traveled on the Lolita Express with Slick Willie. He was on the same flight. We have an eyewitness that says that Slick Willie was at the island. We have a book that just came out which says that Slick Willie carried on a many-year affair with Maxwell. Make him a prime witness, don't you think? You know, you see a lot of these stories, and there's a lot of people that really specifically follow this. You know, some people call it the Pizzagate conspiracy, which is about the global elites and how they engage in all sorts of really, really dark, sadistic, satanic sexual activity with minors, children, all sorts of things. I personally do not delve too much into that kind of thing. I'm aware of it. I've seen the videos. I stay away from it. It's just too dark for me. I can't go there. I don't want to go there. I'm certain it's probably happening. I don't even know if I want to know about it. It's just, that stuff's too dark for me. I don't want to get into that. But when you look at this situation, here you have a woman who we know can't do a single day in a federal jail, prison. And she knows everything according to Mr. Hoffberg. And for her to avoid jail time with all the serious felonies she's facing, she would have to give up the family jewels, my friends. That means everything. Everything and everyone. You talk about unraveling. We've been hearing about this. You watch these guys who cover this story and are on this story. You talk about uncovering the global elitists, you know, child sex crime conspiracies. Man, you talk about blowing that wide open. This could be it. This is big. If they follow through, this could reveal the names of some of the most powerful people in the world who've been blackmailed by Epstein because he's got them on video. And Maxwell knows it all because she helped set these guys up. She procured the underage women that Epstein used to set these guys up, to blackmail them. This could be as big as Spygate or Obamagate, whatever you want to call it, as big as that is. This is probably bigger. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? Is there anything bigger than trying to take out the president in a coup? Using agents of the government, paid using taxpayer dollars in a political campaign? And the one who paid for it was the rotten Reverend Clinton, and her husband is one of the people who's probably top 10, top 5, top 10 in the other conspiracy, the child sex globalist elite conspiracy. Now you understand why the Clinton body count makes sense. And you wonder if that number's about to go up. And it's funny because I was talking to a girl at work today, and she's like, so how long do you think Maxwell will live? And what do you think the cause of death will be? I said, that's what I've been asking. But she goes, you know what? They wouldn't go that far. I mean, we all know they did Epstein. Everybody knows it. We knew they were going to do Epstein before they did him. And then they covered it up. And she's like, and since they did that, I mean, they wouldn't, there's no way they would do that with Maxwell's also. There's no way they would do that. I mean, they did Epstein, and that's dicey. There's no way they would do it again with Maxwell. I looked at her and said, I said, you don't know these people. You don't know the Clintons. I've been watching for a very long time. And all their friends. You don't think that they would hit Maxwell just like they did Epstein? Not with the sheets. It'll be some other method. But you don't think they'll take her out? They absolutely will. If they can. My guess is Attorney General Barr is going to, I don't know, he'll probably have round-the-clock, 24-hour surveillance, personal surveillance on her 24/7. And he'll use his own people. He won't be using, the jails people. He'll put his own people there. He'll send the U.S. Marshals. And he'll say, I want you watching her, eyeballs on her. Not cameras. Physical eyeballs on her 24/7. No one comes in, no one gets out. Man, you want to talk about protecting a high-profile witness. If she gets whacked, how do you think that's going to work? But I'm telling you, do they have, obviously I don't think Barr is going to allow that to happen. He's not going to be a part of that. But, if it was the other people running the show, like Mr. Berman, appointed by Obama, big-time donor to the Rotten Reverend, you think these people wouldn't take out Maxwell? Absolutely they would. And would they know that you were going to raise hell and say, no way, you can't take out both of them to silence them? We all know, you're busted. They'd say, so what? We've been busted many times. You got busted in JFK. We all know what happened with JFK. To have anything to do with Lee Harvey Oswald. He was the patsy. 9/11? Well, 9/11, that was quite the show, wasn't it? They got busted there, too. Go watch the collapse of Building 7. That's all you need to see. In 10 seconds, you can solve 9/11 of whether or not we got the truth or not. Watch Building 7. Boom. That can't happen, but it did happen. Lee Harvey Oswald could never have fired all the shots, and it was a hell of a lot more than 3, in that length of time, with that weapon, from that location. But that's what they told us. They got away with that too. And everybody knew it was bullshit from day one. Just like 9/11. Total bullshit. Most people know it. Epstein, total bullshit. Weapons of mass destruction, total bullshit. You don't think they will whack her? Read your history. Protesters have been removed from the Mount Rushmore entrance. They were arrested and taken away in advance of President Trump's speech at Mount Rushmore. They had taken vehicles, parked them in the road, and took the batteries out. And they have been towed away by tow trucks. Someone's going to have one hell of a big tow bill down at the depot. Someone's got to go claim those vans. Who do you think's going to go down and claim the vans, Mr. Soros? And who's going to pay the tow bills? When you get your car towed to one of them impound lots, you better get prepared to write a big check. The tow bill is very expensive. And they charge you for your vehicle to sit there in the impound. And somebody's got to sign for it. Which Antifa thug do you think's going to go sign for those 5 vans they pulled out of there? Judicial Watch is suing to get the Samantha Power unmasking list. Over 60 people now arrested at CHOP since they ended the autonomous zone. This actress named Rose McGowan, I don't know who she is, but maybe you do. She's calling now for the arrest of Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. Things are heating up, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Avoid people who are stupid, drunk, and have fireworks. Bye.